I've made no secret that I have an obsession with horror, even more so Asian horror. Today's game comes from a Taiwanese developer and is set in 1960s occupied Taiwan. That's right, we'll be taking a look at Detention.
Ah, so you haven't got over high school.
Instantly noticeable is an old school art style. A female teacher is giving a lecture when a tough-looking man walks in to ask about a list.
A student wakes up in the classroom alone.
A storm is brewing, and you can instantly tell. The typhoon warning gives us a glimpse of what is to come, both literally and figuratively.
Making your way to the shelter, you pick up various notes and bulletins. The first announcement you find basically says, "Communists suck, be an informant."
Hey, you found my notebook.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
This game is just like an old school horror adventure game, very reminiscent of Alone in the Dark. The whole presentation is a modern day love letter to the horror games of yesteryear.
When you make your way to the gym, you find a lone student sitting in a chair in dim lighting, with a picture behind her that looks maybe like a military leader or a government official.
Man, I told her not to go to Vermilion Gym first.
When she wakes up, the girl starts following you around. She's missing her necklace. This is important, isn't it?
I suppose you could say it might lead to a chain reaction.
Nope.
Don't be such a spoil sport. She finds her necklace discarded into a vent, perhaps due to rage or bullying. The girl thanks you for finding it.
Not going for the obvious one there?
Already did. Pretty low key, but the real pun masters out there will understand.
On their way out of the school, they find that the bridge is out. And now the river is blood. Awesome.
Thought we weren't reviewing Silent Hill yet.
We aren't. Pay attention. There's a comment made about the river looking like blood, and the girl gets triggered.
Must not like heavy flow.
The girl writes it off as a chemical company disposing of waste.
The two head back to the classroom, and the male decides he'll go get a kerosene heater so the two can stay warm together. I know other ways to stay warm together.
They have a nice little conversation where we learn that one of the teachers is an old war hero.
G.I. Joe!
They're not in America. Calm down.
The world is America.
Back to the story.
Taiwan's a country.
The boy leaves the room to go make a phone call, leaving the girl in the room alone.
And it turns into a dilapidated hellhole. Even scarier than Silent Hill, we might be in Detroit.
Luckily, we aren't. Slowly, the boy Wei starts to pixelate and blow away in the wind.
He doesn't feel so good, Mr. Stark.
This audio, recorded in the year...
There is a small narration by Ray as she talks about the isolation, loneliness, and emptiness she feels. This is followed by short flashes of students and teachers being maimed, tortured, and killed. Ominous.
When we come back from the hallucinations, Wei is hanging from the top of the gym upside down, dead, with Ray sitting in a chair right in front of him. Candlelight fills the room.
Sounds like a rough night. Even rougher hangover. We might need to find a tiger.
And the references just keep coming.
Look who's allergic to fun. You're now in control of Ray. Going outside, you find a creepy old tree and an unmarked gravestone.
Picking up a few more notes, you learn about an illegal book club.
Or as we call it in America, Barnes & Noble.
No, illegal, not failed.
At a shrine, you find a note about some ghosts.
You hear a ringing phone in the distance.
Awesome. Silent Hill, Detroit, now Dulvey, Louisiana.
Ray then gets a cryptic message telling her to go to the counselor's office. As you go through the school, all of the doors are boarded up. On Wei's classroom door, there's a note that says, "Died young."
Sounds like someone forgot to pass the tape on.
Stopping by the bathroom on her way to the counselor's office, Ray wonders how Wei died, and if she's in danger as well.
Who doesn't have an existential crisis in the bathroom?
She grips the necklace of the white deer, asking for its protection.
A little history here. The white stag has different meanings for several different cultures. For example, for the Native Americans, the white stag meant that a big change was going to come rippling through the tribe. For Celtic people, it symbolized entering into a forbidden land. In Arthurian legend, it symbolized a quest for salvation. What might this story's intent be?
Now with the lecture out of the way, we can get back to the story. Ray's reflection in the mirror twists its head in a weird way. The mirror breaks. The light above flickers menacingly.
Moving into the custodian's room, you find a rusty box cutter. And beyond that, a gambling room, despite finding notes saying that gambling is illegal.
It's only illegal if you get caught.
After finding 3 dice, you throw them in a bowl, and they become teeth.
Gambling and meth addicts.
Or, there's a more reasonable explanation. It hinted at the fact that the janitor was beating information out of the students. I need a bowl. Look both ways. Yoink.
Now to make our way back to Wei with a new bowl and box cutter in hand. And since we're besties now, we're gonna slit his throat.
For my safety, we're no longer friends.
Turns out Wei was only mostly dead. His eyes open up as you slit his throat, and the blood drains into the bowl. Ray, in her moment of guilt, apologizes to Wei.
So you take that blood that Wei graciously gave you, you go up to a 3rd floor desk where you dump it on it, you take your notebook, you place it on the blood, you get a marking, you now have a combination to the gate that's been blocking your way.
I remember using that trick in high school.
Don't we all? Inside the counselor's office, you see a 6-armed monster waiting for you outside.
Another common occurrence. I don't get the horror element here. Is that because art imitates life?
The monster begins chasing you as soon as you exit the counselor's office. As you make your way down the hallway, every single window cracks, possibly from the cold or the pressure.
Wait, come back. We've updated our terms of service.
In the room Ray escapes into, she finds a ripped-up counseling record about a disturbed 17-year-old girl, likely her own.
After you finish reading the report, you're transported into Ray's room, where she's in dirty clothes. You can hear her parents arguing outside.
This shows us how much of a miserable life Ray feels like she lives in. There's little other than a desk and a bed in her room. The room is purposefully tight and cramped as if to symbolize a prison cell. In her trash can is a motivational slogan and a photo about hope being the best thing. Ray worries that she won't be young forever and that she'll have to settle for being a housewife, just like her mother. She tells herself there's something to look forward to this weekend, and that she needs to keep her hope alive.
When Ray goes to bed that night, she thinks about a paper plane flying away with her dreams.
Just like many other teenagers, Ray finds herself wanting to escape as far away from home as possible to live out her own desires.
Ray wakes up in the gym surrounded by paper planes and no way to be found.
This could be an allegory for Ray's emotions. She's the only ray of hope inside a hopeless situation with no way out.
Did I say she was in the gym? I meant outside. Once again, another dead end, another Crimson River. This time, we find a brick building that was used by the Japanese during their occupation of Taiwan.
The bottom floor has several prisoners tied up and masked, reminiscent of an execution chamber. Next up, a room full of puppets. Puppets? I hate puppets.
Apparently, burning money in a furnace gets you a fan.
Walking back through the fucking puppets. It grabs me and puts me back outside. Fucking bastard. Asshole.
Once again, Ray narrates, stating that negative thoughts at some point manifest themselves as an approaching storm.
Name drop. Wait. No. That was just me talking earlier. About an impending storm. Told you so.
Going upstairs, the barracks seem like they've been overtaken by wildlife.
Obviously a sign of our own arrogance and human mortality. Nature will always prevail.
There is an unmarked grave in a room that has a projector showing on the wall. Perhaps a theater room?
When Ray removes the incense, the gravestone reveals Way's name. Ray questions if the legacy of the dead must always be just a useless rock.
Ray makes her way back to the classroom. In the classroom, the blackboard fills up with the word snitcher. The slogans beside the board say that patriotism requires sacrifice and to leave your life in the hands of others. This hints that Way's life was in the hands of someone else who was loyal to the state.
After giving two statues items for their hands that aren't dicks, a sword and a fan if you want to know, the doors open up to another part of the barracks. Inside this part of the barracks is a statue of a man that the game says is the president.
There is a tree in the broadcast room that has faces on it, and that's not okay.
It's likely that there was a mass grave underneath its roots, and all the fear that the people in the mass grave felt manifested itself into the tree, and it was a creation of new life over death.
Or it could be, just a tree that looks cool. Outside the barracks, we find a stage production, with a pair of puppet hands and a puppet of Wade dangling with his throat slit.
You find an 8-track tape.
An 8-track is a musical media before cassette tapes. A cassette tape is a musical media before CDs. CDs were before digital.
Now that we have that cleared up, you take the 8-track up to the broadcast room. But first, the lights go out. When turning the lights back on, a giant hand shadow appears over the switch, and the 8-track plays the same song on repeat like most radio stations.
piano is in the room next door. You can get a puppet from inside after playing the repeating tune. Note that you only count the keys with smears on them. To help you out, the code is 121-554-321.
Oh, thank God. Puzzles like these absolutely kill me since I have no sense of tune or rhythm. I never would have solved it without Agram's help. Asshole.
You're welcome. After leaving the piano, several ghostly figures are seen applauding your performance. Taking the puppet out of the cage reveals a gruesome hand that looks like it had been severely tortured.
That, or he played a game using a Dreamcast controller.
On the roof, a student jumps off. Behind that is a bloodstained reel. I'm sure he's fine.
Putting the bloody reel in the projector nets you a number. 867-5309, if you're wondering. Wait, no, that's Stacy's. Hold on. Jesse's girl? No. Okay, actually, it's 025121, I think. Probably.
Using the number on the rotary phone, someone answers and says, "Your country appreciates your assistance."
Once again, the many-armed monster of the state appears outside the door and tries to get into the room with Ray.
Placing both puppets on the puppet stand causes the police officer to shoot both Wei and the masked puppet, making a key drop onto the chair below Wei.
A flashback occurs which shows Ray talking to Wei in a classroom.
Aren't you going to go into some long spiel about metaphors and symbolism and all that?
Nah, pretty obvious that one means jack and shit.
The flashback appears to be a book exchange. Wei points out that Ray seems courageous, much like their teacher.
Ray asks Wei about the rumors of a relationship between Miss Yin and Mr. Chang. The scene fades out, and in its place is a note titled Reading List.
When picking up the list, it takes the form of a gun. She makes a note that the pen is mightier than the gun.
Ominous.
At the end of a hall of mirrors sits Miss Yin, though the mirror shows her with a bag over her head, looking like she's been tortured.
Miss Yin asks Ray if she remembers what she's done, or if she's already forgotten. At this point, it's abundantly clear that Ray has sold out the book club for whatever reason.
Ray yells at Miss Yin that everything is Miss Yin's fault. Then the mirror version of Ray lifts the gun and shoots Miss Yin.
I remind you that the gun was actually the book club notes, in case anyone forgot.
Ray approaches a shrine where she asks about love, prospects, and family, if everything is just because of her, and translates the answer as all her troubles being her own fault.
She notes that youth is pushed through the grindstone until all of its innocence fades away. She's coming to terms with losing her childhood and being forced into adulthood, yearning for youth, but being overwhelmed at the same time.
Ray is transported back into her room, where tuning the radio takes her to different parts of her life.
Her room is now bright and colorful, much like the hope and innocence of youth. Outside her room, however, is a completely different story.
Her mom is sobbing, and her dad is drunk.
This appears to be where Ray thinks she lost her childhood. In the next room are pictures of her family that have clocks on them when the lights go out. Ray's picture in the center is crying.
Walking out of the room, plates, bottles, and chairs are being thrown around in her father's drunken tantrum.
Tuning the radio turns Ray's room upside down, just like how she feels her life has become. Her piggy bank is broken, just like how she feels her family is. Ray remembers when her parents used to have a much better relationship. After setting the clocks, Ray's father's infidelities are revealed to her through several different pairs of lingerie.
Returning to the room with the pictures reveals a Technicolor door, which leads to a Technicolor marsh. The marsh leads to a boat, which becomes her counselor at a table with a paper plane. The counselor mentions she's too self-centered, but admits he is as well. He suggests one day he'll tell her of his time abroad, but now's not the time. He offers to take her for a walk down the boulevard so he can teach her things the textbooks couldn't.
Is he talking about sex? He's talking about sex, isn't he?
I'll let you draw that conclusion, Mr. Symbolism.
Her new past is blue, her room a complete mess. This symbolizes her depression with her crumbling home life and the confusion of a teenager dating a school teacher. The next room is a series of mirrors that you must traverse. When the light is on certain mirrors, a detective will be walking one way or the other. This is your guide to get out of the maze.
She goes through her father's study into the laundry room, where she takes some change out of one of his pockets, and then invests it in piggy bank futures.
Leaving the house turns the outside world into a bright and colorful dreamland. She looks completely out of place as a black and white silhouette. She runs to the movies, and the pendant's significance is finally revealed. It was given to her by the teacher she was secretly dating. There's a small splash of the screen as she's left alone in the theater. She exits, and the town is now black and white as she realizes her feelings were one-sided.
A detective is seen wrecking her dad's office when she gets home. A search warrant reveals her dad took bribes, which might explain the drinking, but definitely the prison time.
Proceeding the only way she can, the world is black and white with blood spatters everywhere, symbolizing her breaking heart.
Handing in her assignment, the teacher she was dating tells her he's done with her counseling, trying to break off his relationship with her. You arrive back in her room with a single light and a distorted spirit of her at her desk.
You can interact with 3 items here. Interacting with the paper plane reveals crappy, angsty teenage poetry. With the pendant, you see crappy, lovesick teenage poetry. Interacting with the counseling record reveals the heartbreak she's feeling.
A single door appears, and through it, Ray hears Yin talking to Chang about dating Ray, and hinting the two of them were also dating. Anger and clenched hands with flashes of faces, ending with blood on her hands, cycle through the screen.
At this point, it's abundantly clear that Ray snitched on the book club in order to get back at the teacher who cheated on her. She talks to herself about trying to forget her guilt, but still being tormented by it. And so, she walks the road, the lonely road, the only road she's ever known.
No.
The scene changes to a single chair atop a broken auditorium. A man appears and walks away as Ray takes the stage. A shadow asks her about her deepest fears, and Ray walks down, again in the midst of a ruinous school building.
Another shadow asks Ray another question. A scene of the students burning books plays and reveals that Yin fled the country. The shrine shows that Wei and Chang were both declared guilty of affiliation with communists and were sentenced to prison and death respectively.
She encounters Miss Yin in her memory, instructing the students to read the books with an open mind. It's revealed Miss Yin was able to escape, but only able to return to the country she loved as a pile of ashes.
Ray notes that no matter how many times her memories replay, they can't be changed. She can never redeem herself.
A flashback shows Ray telling the ex-military officer about the book club.
Another shadow asks about how you'll proceed with no friends.
The scene takes a gruesome turn as she walks past all the bodies floating in the river of blood. She passes those she wronged who mock her and her journey to hell.
She walks through the gym where everyone is applauding her. At the center of the stage is a shadow with a noose in its hand. As everyone fades away, a spotlight shines, highlighting a chair.
At the end of her rope, all she managed to do was hang herself. The guilt finally overcame her for killing the man she loved and her friends, all for a selfish reason.
The camera zooms out, and a lone rope is dangling on the ruined stage. And thus, the story is at its end.
Though the story was short, the impact was great. To answer my question about the white stag earlier, it really relates to all of them. The stag symbolized a huge ripple in her life, her own long-forgotten purity, and in the end, she did travel to a forbidden land, her own guilt.